Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned into Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and everywhere streaming, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, Spotify, you name it, because I want to splatter more hope and happiness on you. And today is September 15th. And guess what day it is? It's National Cheese Toast Day, National Linguine Day, National Felt Hat Day, and National Double Cheeseburger Day. So as we continue on this health kick, I think yesterday was a cream-filled donut day. So I hope you find that interesting. Here's one for people who want to drink, National Creme de Menthe Day, and more seriously, National Tackle Kids Cancer Day. Absolutely. If you have not listened to my interview with Fran Drescher, when she gives really great advice, actually she was on my show twice, great advice about how to prevent cancer. She has a great website called cancerschmancer.org with so much information on how you can prevent your risk of cancer, and that would include kids as well. It's also National Neonatal Nurses Day and National Online Learning Day. So it's a special day. There's lots of things to eat and celebrate and recognize. And you know, I can't do any show without a Happy 88 tip on how to feel better. So today it's a quickie because we have so much going on for the show. But here is your way to feel better right now. Ready? You are alive today to enjoy this thing called life, and you get a choice what you focus on today. So I want you to ask this question all day. Is this the best feeling thought that I could have right now? So if you're thinking about a person that just insulted you or pissed you off, or are you thinking about some person at work that you don't like, or if you're thinking about somebody that didn't take the trash out, or if you're thinking about someone that did you wrong, is that the best feeling thought that you could have right now? Chances are the answer is no. And guess what? You have the power to change your thought. You have the power to say, my number one goal right now is to feel good. And that particular thing that I'm thinking about is not making me feel good. So I am going to switch the thought. I'm not going to turn around and love that person. I'm not going to turn around and say that they're the best thing since sliced bananas. I am going to acknowledge that I don't like the situation. I don't like that person, maybe even. But I'm not going to think about that, because it doesn't make me feel good. Instead, I'm going to think about something that feels good. So do y'all have something that you feel good thinking about? I'm sure you do. Those who watch football, there's been some really good games lately. Those of you who spend time with loved ones, there's some funny things that happen. What was the last funny interaction you had? I just did an on location and filmed this RoboCop in Huntington Park. Those of you on my social media, Doc Balance on Instagram and Dr. Marissa everywhere else, saw the video. And I'm really sorry that no one was there to take the video of me chasing after this RoboCop that in the description when they told me to cover it, they said it's a cross between a trash can and R2-D2. And it was very accurate. So you'll have to go see that. But I would have paid money to have someone film me chasing in heels that RoboCop, trying to talk to it, interact with it. I almost sprained my ankle trying to get in front of it. I played chicken with it and tried to get it to stop, but I chickened out. So those are things that you can think of. Go to my social media. I post lots of funny things. Go to your own life. Go to your phone, because that is what's going to guarantee that you're going to feel better and happy 88% of the time. All right, that's your tip on how to feel better today. And you know that I love to cover what's good about the world, what's good about politicians, what's good about our community. And today's no exception. I got to do an on-location interview with an Assemblywoman who was there to break ground in the improvement of Huntington Beach Bluff Park. And because she's a woman in leadership in our government, and I haven't spoken to her before, I wanted to ask her some questions. So here it is. Please enjoy.
Good morning. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live. You know me as the Asian Oprah. I'm here at this beautiful setting, and I love to see women in leadership. So I tackled her down after the groundbreaking. I loved what you said about being grateful. That's what caught me, and I'd love you to introduce yourself and tell me why you're here today.
I am Assemblywoman Cottie Petrie-Norris, really proud to represent California's 74th District in the California State Assembly, which includes the incredible city of Huntington Beach. And we are here today to break ground on a really important and exciting project. It's the restoration of the Bluff Top Path and Park here in Huntington Beach.
And this is a personal project for you. I really loved what you said about your mom.
My mom was paralyzed. She spent the last 2 years of her life in a wheelchair. And so for me, anything that we can do to improve access and bring joy to folks like my mom, it means a lot.
Now, one last question about leadership and women. This is an interesting time we're having. And any words of advice?
I'll tell you, there's a lot of things happening in the world right now that are scary, that are frustrating, that I think make us angry. And for me, I decided to run for office because I wanted to turn that anger into action. I wanted to turn that, fury into a movement for positive change here in our community, all across the state and all across the country. And I think we're seeing women step up at every single level to be the change that we want to see. And I'll tell you, we are getting it done, Marissa.
Yeah. So I lied. It's not the final question. Orange County is sort of known, unfortunately, as a racist, prejudiced, lots of activity that is Confederate. I talked to Kim Carr about this when at the diversity picnic, and she was saying, this is not who we are. This is not what Orange County is. Can you just speak to that?
I couldn't agree more with Mayor Carr. Sadly, there is a loud and very vocal minority of our population who are stuck in a hateful past. But that is not Huntington Beach. That is not Orange County. And we need to make sure that the sometimes too silent majority, that we make our voices heard and that people understand that this is a place where all are welcomed. This is a place where all are valued.
You heard it here. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live. I do with all mayors. You can be my actually Assemblyman Miguel Santiago.
Yes.
Yeah. He does this with me. So
all right.
Ready? Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live.
And I'm so glad that I put the moose on the table, or those of you who don't already know, I was born in Canada, so that's my version of talking about the elephant in the room. And I was really glad to hear her answer about how the news may have skewed Orange County and Huntington Beach to be a lot more racist than it is. And I'm banking that is true. All right. When we come back, I'm going to interview a really interesting woman who has great views, not just because she agrees with me, but we talk candidly about her role as an actor on General Hospital and Clickbait, but more importantly, as a powerful Black woman in the front row seat as I am with everything that's going on and how she thinks we as a nation can heal. And that's when we come back for the rest of the show. So keep it tuned here to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And we're back. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, streaming everywhere, including my YouTube channel, which is a free subscribe. So please do go there so you'll get an alert every morning for more hope and happiness. And as promised, I invited a very special guest with us today that you can meet. Some of you probably have already met her if you are General Hospital fans. She has been on that particular show for a little bit, and we'll find out more about that. But just a short little introduction. Joyce Guy is an actress, playwright, filmmaker, and choreographer. She has a recurring role on General Hospital and is now on the hit Netflix limited series Clickbait, who I got through another guest that I've had that you all remember. I did a special series with her called It's Not Black and White, or Is It? And that was Akuyo Graham, who's also an amazing actress. Please welcome to my studio, Joyce Guy.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a great smile.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I've heard and seen so much about you, so I'm so pleased. And as you said, Akuyo, I've known Akuyo for, oh my gosh, for quite a bit. I remember we were both doing solo work, and that's how I met her. She did her solo play, then I did my solo play, and so that's how we met when we were like young and fearless and trying to get our voices heard.
Well, now you're not quite as young, but still fearless.
Still fearless.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, I feel it. So let's go back to the beginning, which is how I usually like to start with my guests. Take me back. So when you were young, did you think you were going to be doing all the things that you're doing? Where did all this come from?
Not at all. My father was in the military. And so we moved around a lot. I'm from Alabama. Both my parents are from Montgomery, Alabama. And so, but we started in Texas, and then we lived in Taiwan. Then we lived in Florida.
Wow.
Then we lived in Japan. And then we lived in Kansas. And then my father retired in Dover, Delaware. So we would move almost every 3 years. And I was a shy kid, because you're always adjusting to those new situations. It would take me a little bit of time to kind of, get to know the other kids in the neighborhood. But in the back of my mind, I knew I wanted to be a performer, but I was too shy to say that. And when we lived in Kansas, in Wichita, Kansas, that's when I first started taking like tap class and dance class and ballet class. And by the time I got to Dover, Delaware, I was kind of like, I'm still a little scared. And so I concentrated on athletics. I ran track, I played basketball, I did gymnastics. And then when I decided to go to college, I went to Hampton University. At the time, it was called Hampton Institute, and it's a historically Black college. And that's when I declared my major, drama. And my parents are like, where'd that come from? Because you never hinted, we just knew that you were, talkative and out there and had all that energy, but we didn't know that that's where, you would go down that path. And so in a sense, that's where it started.
Wow. And I bet if you have watched her on General Hospital, you had no clue that this is what's the background. This is the bottom of the iceberg, right? That foundation of a shy. Now, do you think you've become, like I call it, learned extroversion because of all the situations you were put in where you had no control over and you had to adapt and learn new skills?
Definitely. It was definitely learned extrovertism, however you phrase that, because, having to always be the new kid on the block. At a certain point, you had to, it's like, okay, let me figure out a way to get myself out there, to get myself heard. And so you just had to tap on that skill of being the new kid on the block and having to, like, okay, let me do this, shine away. Even like something like this, when I have to be myself, I've gotten better. I'm still a little bit nervous about it. But of course, when it's like, okay, you're acting, that's because you're hiding behind that other persona.
Do you feel like it's almost like two people? Like you go into this different place,
right?
Because you don't seem. I've seen some of your clips. You do not look shy or introverted.
Right?
You're
exactly.
like boom, power. So isn't that interesting? So General Hospital. What role do you play? Oh wait, before I ask you about that, Taiwan. Did you learn any Chinese?
I did. It was that's where I started school. Was in Taiwan. And
I can't even imagine.
What it was rather wonderful because at the time in the 60s they didn't have an Air Force base, so we lived among the Taiwanese. Me and my brothers and sisters, we would just wander around. Being 6, 7, and 8, you learn a lot of Chinese. And,
do you remember anything? Because I speak Mandarin.
The only thing I can do is count. I can still san su wu liu qi ba zhou shi. I can how. Yeah.
Good. Very good. Let me give you some applause for that. It's not every day you hear a Black woman speaking Mandarin and you've got the intonation. Yeah. Wow. I'm impressed. How many brothers and sisters?
I have 3 sisters and I had a brother. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1998. But we had a woman, her name was Chin, and Chin lived with us for the whole week. And then she would go home on the weekends. And so, but Chin taught me Chinese.
That's so cool.
And it was just, as a matter of fact, I wrote a piece about her in our relationship, because that relationship is the most thing I remember from our time in Taiwan.
Yeah, that is so cool. Yeah, and I'm going to put the moose on the table. That's my Canadian version of the elephant in the room, because I'm always talking about the need to value diversity, especially during this time where we are in our country. Right. And I do know, growing up, that Asians are not exactly the most accepting culture as well. They're very prejudiced. I grew up with a lot of prejudice. How did that pan out for you in Taiwan?
And you're absolutely right, because I remember we would drive up to the hill where we lived, and there was a big billboard of Darky toothpaste that we would have to drive by every day, and it had a picture of a Black man in blackface with big red lips and the whole thing. And, we used to see that every day during our times where we would, wander off as kids, seeing the Taiwanese people wanting to rub your skin to see if it came off, and rub your face and rub your hair. And, if we would go places, they would point at you. It's not that you got used to it, but, my mother and my father would say, don't let them no, don't let them do that. But, we kind of chalked it up to, they didn't see a lot of Black people. And so that was the result of that. But, we did have to fight those prejudices while we lived as a kid, while we lived in Taiwan. Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, when I went to China, my father was the first foreign expert invited back into China. I remember in the airport when we got out and we're meeting him, crowds of people surrounded us. and was touching my hair, touching my clothes.
Right.
You know, I know it's not the same, but I too, you know, when I looked at my dad and he's like, they're just curious.
Right.
You know, they've never seen an Asian looking like that. And wouldn't that be wonderful if that's how the entire world saw our differences, with curiosity, instead of putting them down or making fun of and the darky? Wouldn't that be amazing? That's my dream.
It would be amazing. Right. But, you know, like I said, the reminder of that darky toothpaste, that billboard, and we kind of rationalize, well, that's how the Americans presented Black people to them at that time. So we framed it in that way, you know, but again, in a sense, that's how they saw us, as these stereotypes and, you know, those types of things.
Right. Yeah. So since we're going there, I do want to talk about this. Nothing against General Hospital and clickbait. And you're a terrific actress, but you're also a Black woman and a powerful Black woman. And I really, really want our country to get to a heal. I don't think we'll ever get healed, but what needs to happen now? What in your mind, you've been in the same world I have, watched the same things, you know, George Floyd, policing, Trump, Republican, Democrat, you COVID, right? We've had front row seats, the same front row seats, but I'm particularly interested in your perspective as I call it beautiful, colorful woman. That's who we are, especially women of color, and your experiences. What is on your heart? What's on your mind? And we have a couple minutes before we need to take a break for the news. And when we come back, we'll continue that.
Okay. Well, what's on my mind is I think we're in a point where the world is changing, and the world is changing and it's getting smaller, but the world is changing where it's no longer, with quotes, white. And I think that's the part that's frightening, you know, for the so-called power that be. And so in order for us to progress, they're not going to give that to us. Maintaining power is important because, I mean, they've had privilege. So at this point, we have to be our own advocates. We have to, because we can't rely. So we have to do our own. We have to continue fighting. We have to do our own advocacy. It has to come from us. It has to come, you know, and I think coalitions are important, but I mean real coalitions. You know, even what's happening to, you know, Asians in this country, Latinos in this country, you know, to me, in my point of view, we still don't have those strong coalitions. You still don't see, you still don't hear, oh, this group, this Asian group and this Black group are working together, or this Latino group. And, you know, you just like hear individuals, but I think collectively, that's what's going to change. Is that we have to, you know, form coalitions, but we have to be our own advocates, because no one is going to give us invite, you know, or even invite us to the table. We have to kind of bring ourselves to the table with the chair and napkin and fork and glass and everything else.
Yeah. Great analogy. And if you've just tuned in, we're about to take a break, but come right back, because I have Joyce Guy here with me, and we're talking about all things important, all things valuing diversity, how to get through this time. So if you've stumbled on, this is Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News Radio Channel, the station that leaves no listener behind. We'll be right back. Come back.
back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome back. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC, CNBC News radio station, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and of course my YouTube channel, which if you free subscribe, you'll get an alert every morning at 8 a.m. weekdays to tune in to more hope and happiness. And you can also get my red carpet playlist with interviews with Halle Berry and John Travolta and Quincy Jones. So please do subscribe there. And today, I love to balance out the bad news with good news. I love to bring on people to talk about things that matter and that we can be #be the change. And today is no exception. I have Joyce Guy, who is an actor, a playwright, and a choreographer. I didn't know about that. And filmmaker. She has a recurring role on General Hospital. Those of you who tuned in just because you saw General Hospital in the promo, as well as the new series Clickbait. So spend a minute and tell me about your acting experience. When your parents went, what do you mean drama? Like, why? Where did that come from?
Where did that come from? And it's like, well, I wanted to do it, but I was really interested in dance. And so it was the dance thing, but, it was also the acting, because my mom watched old movies all the time. When old movies came on TV long time ago on those Saturdays and Sunday afternoons, I would watch old movies with her. To this day, Turner Classic Movies, that's my favorite channel. I've seen, those classic 50,000 times because of her and her. Watching those movies, I fell in love with Katharine Hepburn. My favorite movie to this day is The Philadelphia Story. That movie just resonates with me. And so
the old Philadelphia Story.
The old Philadelphia Story. With Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. And so that film resonated with me, but also she resonated with me because she had, she was her own woman. She was very independent. She was one of those first actresses who wore pants. And, she was just a really good actress. And so I think, again, in the back of my mind, I said, I wanted to do that, but I did not see myself as, being a Black girl and not seeing images of myself, in those movies. Every once in a while, you might see Cabin in the Sky or something like that. But, on a larger scale, you did not see people that look like me in those movies unless they were maids, Hattie McDaniel or Butterfly McQueen or those type of roles. And I thought this is something that I want to do, but I didn't think I was pretty enough or, special enough, all those things those negative things as girls that we put on ourselves. And so I went to a historically Black college because I had grown up around, even though it was diverse, we were always the only Black kids in the school or the only Black kids in the class. In my junior high school, I was the only Black kid in the whole school. We were the only Black family in that suburb.
So I'm gonna ask you, did you have the same reaction? Because I grew up that way too, and I hated it. I hated being called Chinese, Japanese, dirty knees. Look at these. I hated being singled out that way. I hated. So I started to lie about my Chinese roots, and people would say, "Oh, are you Hawaiian?" And I would say yes. So what was you also hated it?
Well, first of all, it was, Wichita, Kansas, but it was Kansas. And, and
no
also,
Dorothy.
No Dorothy, and they had tornadoes. That was the other thing. Well, when my father got assigned to Kansas, it was like, oh my gosh, we're going in tornado country. My mother, being my mother, she did not want to live the houses that they had because my father was a non-commissioned officer, and so the housing that we were supposed to be in were these pillbox houses, as my mother said, and my mother was like, my furniture can't even fit in that little box, and so they decided to move to this suburb. Again, like I said, we were the only Black family in that suburb, and
so where was
I hated it.
Yeah, where was the switch?
There was no switch. I hated it. I mean, I until we moved to Dover, because in my junior high school class, the first 6 months I was called the N-word every day. When I walked to school, I had to walk to school. So I would walk to school in fear, kind of, because, I would have kids following me. And then, finally I met Sherry Miller, and she became my friend, and she lived, down the street from me. And so her father or her grandmother would take us to school every day. So I bypassed, having to walk to school. But then, at a certain point after, the N-word dissipated, I guess, I guess in a sense, that's where I kind of found my boldness, because I tried out for cheerleader. I didn't get it, but I tried out, just like I'm going to try out in front of all these little kids. And so,
now, is Sherry Miller black or white?
No, white, because again, I was the only black. And
okay.
Sherry Miller became my my best friend. And
and would she fight? Would she like make sure people didn't?
I think to a certain, again, like I said, when I tried out for cheerleader, and then I joined the pep squad, and then I started running track, and I was very good. And so since I was very good and I was winning, they kind of left me alone. Like I said, the fact that Sherry, I drove to school with her, and and so she would kind of, but I mean, at a certain point, I think I kind of asserted myself. And if somebody bothered me, I would just, but I mean, I had my brother, he was in he was in the high school, but the high school was a little bit further away, but the high school was more diverse, because the black kids from the Air Force Base would go to the high school, but nobody, the junior high were just those kids in that suburb. And so I was it, but I hated it. And it was like, finally, when my father was assigned to Dover, Delaware, it's like, how fast can we get out of Kansas?
Right.
But again, like I said, I started my tap class and my ballet class and all that stuff in Derby. So at least I got that out of it. And of course, me and Sherry, we wrote letters for a few years. I mean, eventually we lost touch, but for a while, me and her, kept, I'm sorry, I said Sherry Malone. My God, I can't believe it. Sherry Malone. Me and Sherry, I mean, I just thought about this, like I have all her letters. I mean, I still have her letters. And so we kept in contact for a few years, after we left Kansas. Right.
So you know how I just said I hated being Chinese. Did you hate being black because of all of that?
Well, I don't think I hated being black. I didn't, because I had, my sisters. I didn't hate being black. There was a part that, you wanted to be lighter skin, because, if you were lighter skin, you were prettier. You wanted your hair straight, because, even though people started wearing afros, I didn't wear an afro till I went to the black college, but I mean, I still wanted to have my hair straight, but I wouldn't necessarily say I hated being black, and I think my mother and father had a lot to do that, because they were
Proud.
They were very
Strong,
proud. I mean, from Alabama, and they were like, no, 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 no. You be proud of who you are.
Right? Got it. Yeah. My dad's reaction was, I never should have left China, and it broke his heart. He's also on the other side with your brother now, loving us from there. But so that's why I asked you, when did that change? So you really didn't have a change because you never went to I don't like the color of my skin.
Right.
Right.
I did.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I like that color of my skin. And I think that's, but when I graduated from high school, and I mean, I did want to go to a white college, but, however, the stars aligned, I ended up going to an all black college. And that was the best thing I could have done, because that really cemented um, my love for who I was, for my color,
Mm-hmm.
for my the skin tone, my
Mm-hmm.
my hair, because I saw Black people, at that college they call Hampton University the Harvard of the South. But I
Oh, that's
saw Black
cool.
people,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw rich Black kids, you saw middle class Black kids, you saw poor, you saw a diverse group of Black of students, and that was very, 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 that influenced my life. I mean, I think that was one of the best choices I've ever made, because it really just, in a sense, that changed my life
Right, right.
tremendously.
And then how did you get your first role, or how did you land? How long have you been on General Hospital now?
Well, one of the first, when I came to LA in 1987, and I think one of my first under five lines was on General Hospital a long time ago, like in 1989 or 90. And then I had done another soap opera called Sunset Beach that was on NBC. And then after that was canceled, General Hospital, they called me in to do another role. It was in 2011, but it was a realtor. And so, but I did not start this role until October of last year.
Okay. And what is
Yeah.
your role there?
My role is, her name is Phyllis Caulfield, and she is a nurse, but her and her husband, they own a bar, not in the major city of Port Charles, but in Nixon Falls. And so, Phyllis, there's a character on the show called Nina Reeves, and so Nina, uh, she was in a coma, and so she gave birth to a child, and her mother didn't like the father. So her mother gave the baby to another family, and I was responsible. I was the nurse who gave the baby to another
Ah.
family. But also, um, in my town of Nixon Falls, one of the main characters, the actor Maurice Bernard, his character is Sonny Corinthos. He was driving through Nixon Falls. His car fell in the ravine, and he lost his memory. And so they brought him to the hospital where I work. And so Sonny, not knowing what he was, and he started working in my husband Lenny and our bar. And so that's the storyline that's been going ever since that Sonny has lost his memory, and he's been working in me and my husband's bar.
Awesome. Awesome. I can tell the way you're describing it that you really enjoy and love what you do,
Well,
which is
it's
so
it's
cool.
classic soap opera, and I love it because it's just and they have a huge following, but it's just I remember when because they brought me in for the October, then they brought me back again for the storyline. And so I would have friends call me, and it's like, oh my God, Joyce, this is classic soap. Someone loses their memory. This is so juicy. My sister, she's been watching the show for 25 years. And she's like, oh my God, this is just juicy. And, so I'm serious. I'm having the best time of my life. I
Aw,
mean,
that's
it's
so
well,
cool.
I had fun with the other soap opera I did, but
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of fun with this because again, it's heightened melodrama, and
Right, right, right,
it's
right.
heightened melodrama, but as our job is to make it true, and
Hmm.
believe in this world, and believe
Yeah.
in what you're doing, and believe in those circumstances,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the fun part.
That's great. And then clickbait, how did that come about?
Oh my God, clickbait. It was that was in 2019, and it was that was the standard in-person audition. And again, it was one of those roles. It's like, okay, this is kind of interesting. This is juicy. And went to the audition, and how you kind of, as an actor, you kind of feel, I did pretty well. And
Yeah.
but then I forgot when when they offered me the role, they're like, well, it shoots in Melbourne, Australia. And I'm like, okay, but it takes place in Oakland. But okay, you know,
Right.
it takes place in, but yeah, so it just happened that simple. And I just, Melbourne, it's an absolutely fascinating and wonderful city. Now, you talk about diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't see a lot of, African people. I mean, you do see some, but it's, there's a large Asian population. There's a large Middle Eastern population. There's a large Indian population. And so you're just surrounded
By
by
diversity.
diversity in
Yeah.
Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah. So do they have Asian hate crimes there? Do they have George Floyd type of, ramping up to, I don't even know what to call that. Police brutality, I guess, would be
Right. I
the right.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't, if anything, it was because I would watch, they had a separate station of Aboriginal culture.
Mm,
They had their own, network or
diverse
TV station.
group.
Right. Well, I would
Right.
watch them because I think that's where a lot of the protests and a lot of um, uh, civil rights are coming from that community, from the Aboriginal community, because
Interesting.
they're still, working their way and finding their way,
Mm-hmm,
because,
mm-hmm.
unfortunately, which I found, which was interesting, is that the Australian culture, they were pretty much, they pretty much, were pretty comfortable were with saying, you know what, we did not do well by these people. I mean, they
Again,
weren't they
wouldn't
weren't
that be
shy about
great?
it. Yeah, they weren't shy about it, and they're like, you know what? I mean, the people that I came in contact with,
Yeah.
said that we've done some really heinous things, to
Yeah.
the Aboriginal culture. And so
Yeah.
that was refreshing, but it's like, okay, what are you doing to rectify it? But
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
one thing I liked about them. They weren't, well, it was so long ago, and just like, no, just,
Mm-hmm.
when once you say what you've done, then the next step is, what are we going to do about it? And so,
Right.
like, we're a little bit reluctant, just like, well, shouldn't you forget? Or it was so long ago, I
Or I
wasn't getting
didn't
that.
own any slaves.
Right, exactly, right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
And
And it
and
wasn't
that
my
is
family. Yeah.
right, right. And that truly is, the probably if people could just own,
Own it.
just own it. It would make such a huge difference. But because there's just no ownership and
Right.
tons of deflection and tons of not my problem, that it
Right.
just makes things a lot worse. And if you're just tuning in and you're wondering who I'm talking to today, it is Joyce Guy. She's an actor, playwright, and I would say humanitarian as well,
Oh, I
for
think
some
so.
of the work that you're doing. Absolutely. And you'll recognize her if you're watching on my YouTube channel right now, as a character on General Hospital and Clickbait. So we don't have a whole bunch of time. I did want to go back and recapture. So the coalition idea is something, people of color could do so much more if we joined together and became a united front
Yes.
in ending racism and prejudice and all of that. What else can we do? And we just identified another one. If we could wave a magic wand and have the past majority with the power recognize, I've come so far and made a lot of enemies by saying, if you recognize that our country was built on the backs of so many people who were not paid and treated horrifically, and just
Right.
acknowledge that these first families really nothing to be proud of. You made your money from the plantations that took people out of dragged people. You know,
Right.
I was in Ghana, and I saw that
Good.
horrific slave, you know, the port where they, you know,
Yes.
so many people died and were dragged to this country. That non-recognition.
No, I've been to Senegal, to the door of no return. Because I did my filmmaking, I did a film about the dances of the Casamance in Senegal, which is part of that. And so,
What's the name of
yeah,
it? How can
it's,
people
ca-
watch it?
it's called Dancing Like Home, and it's on Amazon Prime. And,
Wonderful.
and so we went to the door of no return. And we got a private, I went with my dance teacher, and so his cousin was working there. And, you know, we went down, and, you feel presence. And the next thing
Mm-hmm.
I know, my whole body is shaking, and I couldn't stop crying.
Mm, mm.
I
I
could
had a
not stop
similar.
crying
Mhm. I'm
because it's
sure yours
real.
was even more. Yeah. No,
Right.
we sang there. I went with Agape, and we
Okay. Oh,
sang,
okay,
and you could
great.
just feel like, you know,
Yes,
I'm
exactly. You
feeling the
can feel it.
tingles right now,
Right,
remembering that.
right, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, right.
So if you had access and counsel to leadership in our country, what would be the number one thing that we need to do as a country to heal?
Well, I think again, when you talk about ownership, I think that's a step, because I don't think we've taken ownership of what this country has done to Native Americans, what they've done to uh, Chinese people, what they've done to Japanese people, what they've done to, African Americans. There is no ownership. But the other part, I mean, I don't know whether this is, going to leadership, but I mean, in my, you know, I think as women, because to me, that is going to be the key.
Mm,
Is, I mean, the same thing as I say about, Black people, taking our own power. I think once women, and, women, I said this a long time ago, when I came to LA, and people were not ready to hear this, is that as women, as women of different colors, we have to be honest with ourselves about complicitness, and how um you know uh white women were also complicit, in our history. And they've got to take ownership in that. And I think once they take ownership in that, and again, as women, we come together, because I think we passed the point. And not to say anything against men, but what's that phrase? When you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And I think that's something as women that we have to continue, or but do a better job of bringing other women along. But I think as
mm,
women, because I think we're able to communicate better, and we're able to communicate honestly, and it's not easy. It's not going to be easy to,
right.
come to terms with the things that we have, sometimes unconsciously done to other women. But we've got to come together and have that uncomfortable conversation,
Yeah. Yeah. Or
about
consciously. Or
or
consciously.
consciously.
We I don't know what that is. You know, catty women is it's like it's the norm. I don't
It's
understand it,
it's the
but it's the
norm,
norm. But that's what
you
you're
know.
talking about.
That's what I'm
Absolutely.
talking about, just like
Yeah.
Margaret Atwood when she wrote The Handmaid's Tale. It was about the complicitness of women.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is just not,
Absolutely.
this is across, I mean, this is, in African culture, it's an Indian culture, the
In
complicitness
Asian
of women, in
culture.
Asian
Hmm.
culture,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think, and that's a long road to hoe, but I think it can be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And I think, once we have that breakthrough, and we come to terms with our power as women, I think that's going to be the
Game changer.
flagship. It's going to be a game
Yeah.
changer.
Yeah.
Big game
Absolutely.
changer.
And we are out of time. A quick question with a quick answer, because I ask all my guests, to who and what are you most grateful for?
Oh, I am most grateful for, wow. I am most grateful for the people and the family, the friends and the family that I have in my life. I think because I think that is the key to why we are here is our relationships and how we nurture them and what we do with them. So I am so grateful for the people and the family that I have in my life because I've just been so fortunate to have some wonderful people that I've come across, that I've made friends with, that I am colleagues with, and I cherish those relationships so much.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And you have a new one here.
Thank you.
And I feel that from you as well. That's the danger. There's a caution warning. When you come on my show, you could probably end up being my friend. So thank you so much, Joyce Guy, for coming to the studio. For those who want to follow you and see what's going on in General Hospital, how do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at the Joyce Guy. And you can also find me on Facebook on Joyce Guy. What's that? Facebook.com. So it's Joyce Guy, the Joyce Guy. I'm on Twitter, but I can't remember what it is. So don't even look for me on Twitter. I mean, I'll be honest.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I love it. Oh, great. Best to you.
Thank you so much. And you have a fabulous. This is so, you're just delightful. This has been so wonderful. And I love when people ask me those questions that are like meaty and juicy about what's going on in the world and about, spirituality and awareness and that stuff. And so,
thank you. I'm just blessed and grateful that I continue. Thank you for the support, all of you, into my 9th year now. 533 shows, and thank you to all those who are supporting. Asian Oprah giveaway today is a copy of my #1 bestseller, 8 Ways to Happiness. From wherever you are, go to drmarissa.life, be one of the first 8 to say Asian Oprah giveaway, and you'll get a copy of that for mental health awareness. All right. And that's it for today's scintillating episode of Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind, and reminding you, Dr. Marissa reporting live from her living room, that it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. Have the best day ever.